Oh yeah, you get through it. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. If you don't do this, I've been doing these.
If we can gather around here for some speeches and some music. I would like to thank everyone who's made it so far. We are expecting a few more, hopefully.
Hello, how do you do?
I've seen you before.
Yeah.
Today, Julian Assange is 51. Happy birthday, Julian.
Happy birthday, Julian.
This birthday must be his last in this horrific prison.
Here, here, here.
The JADC today are proud to celebrate his birthday here. There are light refreshments and his birthday cake, which we will tuck into at some point. We have some great speakers, we have some great poetry, and I would like Maxine Walker to start us off. And please give her the best attention we can, because of all the people I know, she is most probably one of the most knowledgeable of the background and the future of the Julian Assange case. Please welcome Maxine Walker.
Bravo, bravo, bravo.
Dear friends, it's lovely to see everybody here today. And as you know, the Committee to Defend Julian Assange has organised today's event to mark Julian's 51st birthday, his 4th birthday in this vile hole, Belmarsh. And to say to him, most importantly, the most important thing we can say to him is that he has the solidarity and support of millions of people throughout the world. Those millions may not be here today, but they exist and they are doing things and they are fighting for his freedom. And people who know what he has exposed about our rulers are the people who are fighting for him. We are thinking of him all the time and trying to think of strategies to help him and to win the battle to prevent his extradition to the USA. So I say today, Julian, we salute you. We salute your courage. I want to pay tribute to those who've campaigned over the years for Julian Assange, and there have been many, even here in the UK. The veterans who stood for years outside the Ecuadorian embassy in all weathers, the people from the Latin American community who have continued their fight for Julian here in the UK, the people who are on the streets in all weathers, and Belmarsh has a peculiarly bad climate in every possible sense, fighting the narrative about Julian that was crafted so carefully by the US and British intelligence services. The supporters have been picketing, lobbying. We have writers, we have artists, we have musicians, we have people all over the UK who have taken up our offer to get a bundle of leaflets and go out and leaflet their streets. And they stretch from the Isles of Scotland all the way down through the UK. It's a remarkable thing that people are asking for them and giving them out. We're here to say that although we are told, although I haven't believed that for a good many years, but although we are told we live in democracies, his case should demonstrate to any person that we do not live in democracies. Because when we are on the streets giving out leaflets, we find, as you heard the toots of the cars there today, a huge amount of passive support for Julian Assange. In a democracy, if this was a democracy, he would be free. If this was a democracy, he would be nationally feted as a crusader for truth. If this was a democracy, he would be noted for his exposure of the very anti-democratic forces which are holding him in prison today and trying to extradite him. The very anti-democratic forces that cause mayhem, death and destruction throughout the world. In a democracy, the war criminals, the Bushes, the Blairs, the arms salesmen like Lord Arbuthnot, husband of one of the judges in Assange's case, would be in jail. The merchants of death who have killed up to 1 million people in Iraq and uncountable numbers elsewhere in the world, and continue their killing today and now in Europe, would be behind bars. They would have been before a people's tribunal and they would be behind bars, and Julian Assange would be free. Recently, talking about what has happened to Julian, Stella Morris said, "It feels like a deliberate effort to remove Julian from view and turn him into prisoner X, faceless, voiceless, with no one to bear witness to his treatment. But Julian is not prisoner X. He is, as she said, my husband and the father of our young children. We bear witness." And she went on to point out that the last time the media photographed Julian was in 2019 through the scratched windows of a prison van. The UK authorities insist that our wedding photos are not made public on security grounds. In court, Julian has not been permitted to sit with his lawyers, and he has not been allowed, despite many attempts to get them to allow it, to attend his own court hearings in person. Disappeared, silenced. Well, what we do on the streets and in the cinemas and on social media and on the pickets and lobbying and demonstrating outside the House of Commons, wherever we can, is part of the resistance to the efforts of our rulers here and in the US, Australia, Sweden and other countries to disappear Julian Assange and to disappear the injustices, the grave injustices that have been done to him. The forces of the rich, the billionaires, the state, their vast apparatus of lies and propaganda, their massive military and intelligence apparatus is enormously strong. It has the ability to construct narratives that are fictitious and to get people to believe them. We have seen their efforts in relation to Julian, and now we see their efforts in relation to the Ukraine war, where US-led NATO currently pumping in billions upon billions of our money to prolong that war, is presented as a force for good. Now, imagine trying to sell NATO as a force for good. Never have the truthful voices about this and about other injustices been so censored. I recommend that people read Jonathan Cook's latest article to show what the media has done, the mass media, the corporate media, the billionaire-owned media has done in relation to the struggles of people throughout the world. And he shows how many journalists in the USA, hundreds and hundreds, and in Britain, hundreds and hundreds, they're not just deluded in some way, they're not just knowingly telling fictitious stories, they are actually on the payroll of the CIA. They're on its payroll. And we saw recently journalist Paul Mason, who has pretended to be on the left for as long as I can remember, never very convincingly. I mean, it is a bit of a contradiction to say you're on the left and yet viva NATO, which is what he's been saying for several years. We know that Paul Mason has been trying with the British intelligence services to get all the progressive media, particularly they've targeted the Grey Zone and Mint Press and Consortium News and anybody who has the temerity to puncture their fictions. In the US, though, I want to make this point, although they're powerful, although fiction is powerful and it can last a long time, but fictions only work if people are comfortable enough to go along with them. And in the oppressed nations, where, for instance, in Ecuador, 30% of the people live on $2 a day, less than $2 a day, fictions are much harder to peddle. And in the US and in its able lieutenant, the UK, we see people now being plunged into poverty here. 5 million children, food insecure. Priti Patel not only signed Julian's extradition order, she seems to be on a daily basis, I can hardly keep up with her, she introduces more and more reactionary laws in the House of Commons to suppress protest. And I would say, what are they frightened of? Because things may look peaceful and suddenly that will change. People will not live the way they're being forced to live on many levels. And the poor and oppressed people certainly will not and will rebel. The powers that be fear mass opposition. Even the final tiny bits of democracy and democratic rights are being taken away from us. And Julian's case is part of that taking away of the democratic right we have to hear and speak the truth. But no truth is to be told in this land of lies. However powerful they look, and they are, the vast mass of people can be more powerful. It is up to us campaigners to draw in those forces. That is our job. I recall after the 1984 miners' strike, which was a political battle, they had everything thrown at them. They had surveillance of their headquarters. They had an intelligence operative in a top role. They had everything thrown at them, including massive police violence. And yet, when you read the memoirs that those politicians wrote after the miners' strike, it was a very, very close thing. The miners were very close to victory. So, don't be downhearted. Keep going. We keep up this struggle. If the US and British ruling class did not fear their own defeat in the case of Julian Assange, they would not have tried to disappear him and silence him. They would not have tried the most they could possibly try to smear and denigrate him, because they fear people, when they know the truth, will support him. So we send birthday greetings to Julian, and we send this message to everyone. We are here. We fight on for truth, justice and democracy in its real sense, that the interests of humanity and the mass of people on this planet shall one day rule the earth. Free Julian Assange!
Free Julian Assange!
Thank you, Maxine. I would like to introduce a great academic, a human rights observer, a union organiser, and one of the great supporters here in London of Julian Assange, Dr. Deepa Driver, who is now going to take the mic. Thanks, Deepa.
Thanks, Joe. And whenever I come to one of these vigils, activism events organised by the JADC, it always makes me feel as though there is hope for humanity in the midst of all the horror we see. Around us we can see the wonderful performance art that is the yellow ribbons for Assange, which is the gift of Truman. And there are so many people like Truman, like Maxine, like Emmy, like Jeannie, who's been organising the wonderful film showings, like Joe playing his music. There's so many people here who are doing wonderful things. And before I forget, I must thank Joel, who every time bakes this beautiful cake for us, and Antonia, who gives us all the food that you're about to enjoy. But everybody doing their little bit, and that's what this is about. But before I start my speech, I just wanted to read out a little poem, which was from a book called The Guantanamo Diaries by Mohamedou Ould-Slahi. Mohamedou spent 14 years in Guantanamo. He was sexually abused, he was tortured, he was treated in a very humiliating and degrading manner, amongst other things, kept in cold rooms without any warmth, shackled to the ground. And Mohamedou wrote his memoirs, and it took them 9 years to get it out of that prison. And Mohamedou, of course, spent 14 years without trial or charge. He had been kidnapped and taken to Guantanamo, like many of the other detainees there, an innocent man. And he wrote this, he quotes this poem from an Iraqi poet called Ahmed Matar. I'm going to read it out to you. It's only a few lines, and I think it's specifically aimed today at those who work at Belmarsh and the police who stand with us, observing us today. And this is my message to you. I stood in my cell, wondering about my situation. Am I the prisoner? Or is it that guard standing nearby? Between me and him stood a wall. In the wall there was a hole through which I see light and he sees darkness. Just like me, he has a wife, kids, a house. Just like me, he came here on orders from above. And I think the reason this poem felt so resonant to me was because, as a trade unionist, I recognize that the people who are working around us are not necessarily bad people themselves. They are doing their job. But as in those who were guarding Nelson Mandela at Robben Island, those who are guarding Julian Assange today can choose to be on the side of justice or choose to be treating those who are in here, in this prison, harshly. And this choice is one they make every day, every minute, in a context in which many people within this prison shouldn't be in there. They need medical care, they need psychiatric care, they need a social system that functions. And it is to these people that my speech today is addressed, and I'm not going to read it out. I'm just going to put my phone in front of me so that I don't forget some of the things I wanted to say to you. One of the things that Mohamedou says in his book is, to maintain your dignity, you have to first respect the dignity of others. And it is this message I bring to those in this prison who stand guard over the world's most important political prisoner today, Julian Assange. Julian has suffered enormously in the last decade. His privileged legal conversations, his medical examinations were all repeatedly spied upon. His baby's nappy they tried to steal the nappy in order to test whether it was his baby. They would stop at nothing. They denied him due process when they deprived him citizenship, when he was kicked out of that embassy unceremoniously. It was on the back of an IMF loan. It was not on the back of judicial process in Ecuador. So when British Metropolitan Police officers went into that embassy, they were part of the problem. They were taking part in an illegal activity, illegal under international law. When Julian was treated in the way he was, dragged out, wearing a big beard because they wouldn't allow him his razor and made to look like some kind of weird stranger, it was a concerted plan. It was a concerted plan to destroy Julian. Are you, when you work here at Belmarsh, I presume you came here either because it was a job and you needed to pay your bills, or because you genuinely believed when you work for the police or when you work for the prison service, you are doing something for your community. You are doing something to make this world a better place. Is helping cover up war crimes, rape, murder, torture in Iraq and Afghanistan, 20 years of torture at Guantanamo Bay prison, is helping cover that up what you chose to stand up to do? Is that what your duty is? And remember, that's what you do when you silence Julian Assange. That's what you do when you don't speak up about the day-to-day humiliation and indignities he suffers. Are you, instead of serving the community, guarding Priti Patel and Britain's shame, which resides in Belmarsh prison? If you are black, if you are working class, if you are of Middle Eastern origin and you work in this prison, I remind you that your brothers and sisters were being tortured and killed elsewhere in the world, and that is what Julian revealed. It is thanks to him that we have the name of 8-year-old Hanan Saleh Matrood, who was shot dead in the streets of Iraq by forces who should not have, who were giving her sweets the day before. These are also the same forces who killed a Good Samaritan who went to pick up wounded people, and 2 Reuters journalists, Namir and Saeed, on the streets of Iraq when they were just walking around. And it is to cover up these crimes that Priti Patel and others seek to silence Julian Assange. It is to cover up Mike Pompeo's plan. Mike Pompeo, the CIA director, who says, oh, the CIA lied, cheated, smeared, and he feels no shame at it. It is this war criminal whose crimes you're helping cover up. And I urge you today to blow the whistle when you see illegitimate activities taking place in Belmarsh. I urge you to speak up in ways that are safe for you, but to tell the truth, because it is up to ordinary people like you and me to tell the truth while Julian is silenced. We don't have the big ideas like WikiLeaks, but we have courage just like Julian does. And that courage is contagious. It is more contagious than COVID-19. I also ask you to think about whether when you hear about all these smears about this man, think about whether these people who underpay and overwork you stand for you and the people of Britain, or whether it is this honest journalist who has told the truth about, corruption, where corporations want to sue governments in secret courts, where corruption in Kenya, where Arab Moi's government was causing all kinds of problems, whether it is sparking the Tunisian Arab Spring. These are the things that Julian does. This is the person you have behind those walls. And we urge you to treat him with care and with respect, because he stands on our side, on your side and mine, in defense of the people, because WikiLeaks has always been about one thing. It's not about money. It's not about prestige. It's about the public interest. And that's what matters, and that's what we must stand for the people. Thank you. Free Julian Assange!
Free Julian Assange!